Hey, what's up? This is Scott with Level Up Tutorials, and in this video, we're going to be building a quick little React component that's essentially a button that confirms whether or not you want to delete something. Now, this was inspired by a tweet from Wes Boss. As you can see here, he's basically saying, what's your favorite way to do scary button presses? And then he goes on to show his, where he has this button. You have to click it 3 times before it goes ahead and allows you to confirm it. Now, I thought this was a really interesting experiment and something that maybe we could elaborate more on over the course of a few videos and have several different options for this kind of thing. But really what I wanted to do with this video was to give you experience building sort of a real use case React component outside of a project, and then you can go ahead and actually take this code and do stuff with whatever you'd like. Now, you've probably noticed by now this is whole new look here. This is my new desk set, and it's a little bare bones right now. It's sort of all over the place, so things will be getting tightened up quite a bit. So if this style isn't 100% finished, don't worry about it. It is like in flux right now. I just wanted to get this video out. Okay, so let's check it out here. What we're going to be doing is creating this scary button press, and it's going to have to be pressed 3 times. 1, 2, 3 before it's going to go ahead and do the action. Okay, so let's go ahead and think about how we want to do this. I'm going to head to my code here, and I'm going to create a new component. Now, you can do this in any sort of system that you want, whether this is online in a code pen or in anything like a code sandbox or a app that you're working on. I have a totally blank Create React app. So inside of here, we're just going to create what I'm calling a confirm button, okay, .js, and I'm going to use a React snippet library to create my React component, okay? So everyone should be able to do this at least this point, right? If you can't create a React component or know inside of React, then of course you want to go ahead and get some React training. By the way, if you need React training, check out React 16 for Everyone, which is a course by Level Up Tutorials on leveluptutorials.com/store, or you can become a pro and get access to that. Links will be in the description. I highly recommend that course for beginners if you have not done any sort of React, or if your React skills need some touching up, okay? So we have this confirm button here, and what we want to do with this button is to simply just have it be a button, okay? Let's get rid of this div stuff, and we're going to say delete. Cool, nice and easy. Let's go ahead and actually throw this button on our app.js just so we can have it in our website here. We can check it out. We can import confirm button from /confirm button. And then we're just going to go ahead. I wrote confirm button right here, so I'm going to change that to confirm button. There we go. Thank you, spell check. I'm going to get rid of this paragraph thing down here and just replace it with the confirm button. Now, we can make this thing more configurable as we go, so that's no worries there. Let's just go ahead and talk a little bit about what this button needs to do and how to approach it, right? So we have this delete button here, okay? And right now when we click it, it's not going to do anything. However, we do want it to run some sort of function, right? We want it to be like anything that we're passing into this button, we want it to be able to run on an on click, okay? So let's go ahead and think about the props that we need in this thing. The first thing that we're going to need is an action, right? What is the action this button is doing? And we can set up some prop types just by importing prop types from prop-types. Okay? And prop types can be used in this kind of site as static prop types is equal to, and then we can have our various prop types. For instance, we want an action which is going to be a prop types func, and this is going to be is required, because if we're having a button here, it's got to kind of do something, right? You know, that makes sense. Okay, so we're going to have an action, and that action is going to happen on the on click. However, it's not going to necessarily happen on the on click, because right now, if we were to do this action on the on click, let's go ahead and actually just do that on click, and we can have, let's break out our const. And we can have action equal to this dot props. And then on click, we can run the action, okay, like this. And now inside of our app component where we're calling the confirm button, we can say action is equal to a function that simply just console.logs action, like a director or something. Okay, let's check this out. So I'll let you linger here for a second. It's simply just a function that calls a console log, right? No big deal. Next, on the confirm, I'll leave it here. Again, we're just destructuring action, and then we're running the onClick. We're using that action props. Now, let's open up our console here to make sure that this is, in fact, doing what we want it to do when we click it, right? That's an important aspect of this. When we click it, it says action over here. If this isn't large enough for you, I can bump that up right here. There we go. Action, 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 okay? Every single time we press it. So let's go ahead and try this out some more here. What we want to be doing is now not firing action every single time we click it, but what we want to be doing is firing an event that keeps track of how many times we clicked it, okay? And in fact, we could have that in state. So we can have our state is equal to, and this can be anything that you want. We can say times pressed, and this can be equal to 0 initially, okay? And then we can have a new function or new method inside of here that we could just say is on press. So on press, and on press is going to be equal to an arrow function like this, where we can do this dot set state, and set state can increment. Let's pull out const times pressed is equal to this dot state, okay? And we can just simply say times pressed is equal to times pressed plus 1. And now lastly, again, we'll want to pull out times pressed from this dot state down here from this dot state. And instead of that, we can have in here times pressed like this, okay? So all in all, what we're doing here is when you press this or when you run this method here, we're going to just be incrementing each times pressed by 1. Then we're going to display that time right next to here. Now, the last thing we want to do is run this on press right here instead of our action. Now, what we should see is, let's go ahead. It says on press is not defined. I'm sorry, that needs to be this dot on press. My bad there. Because we're referring to a method inside of this class, so it needs to be this. So now we have this button, and every single time we click it, it's going to increment in number, right? This is what we want to see because really all we need to do is keep track of these values, right? So let's go ahead and now take this to another level by running the action if the times pressed is going to be equal to 3. So what we want to do is have a callback inside of here, like so, and then we can say if this dot state dot not time on press dot times pressed, if this is going to be equal to 3, then we want to then run our action. Now we can again get our action out of this dot props. Let's actually cut it from the render function here and paste it up top. Okay, so now that we have our render function here, or our action function here, we can simply just call our action like this. So if state.pressed times pressed is equal to 3, then we're going to run our action. Okay, so let's try this out one more time, and we can go 1, 2, 3, and you'll notice on the 3-1 it says action. Okay, this is brilliant. This is super brilliant. And you might be thinking this is great, but you know the delete button says 3 on it. Let's go ahead and think about some of the ways that we can actually modify this a little bit more, right? Like, for instance, what if we want the text to change? Like in Wes's initial example, he had his text changing, "Are you sure?" once more, and I will resend, and then sending, okay? And we could have this hard-coded inside of here for right now, and then we can move it out to be a prop. Actually, I take that back. Let's just have it be a prop to start. For instance, we're going to have a prop named dialogue. Dialogue. And dialogue is going to be equal to an array. And in this array, we could have it be the several different things. For instance, initially we want this to say delete. The next we want to say, "Are you sure?" And the last one can say, "Once more to delete." Okay, you can have these say whatever you want, right? But we essentially just have an array here of 3 different text slogans. When I save this, Prettier kind of knows what to do here. Now, what's cool about this is that we can come down here in our render function, and we can now bust out dialog from this dot props, and the value of inside of the button where we're simply just saying delete here can be dialog, and we can use the times pressed as the index for the array. So just like this. So now every single time we press it, it's going to pull an item from that index and set it to the dialog, okay? Let's check it out here. We should have this actually kind of doing something now where we can say delete, are you sure? Once more to delete, and then notice how we click it this last time, we get that action up here. And again, the button here is now collapsing because there's not enough items. Now, honestly, you could have a default way, or what you can do is simply reset the state back to 0. Okay, and we can do that simply by saying this dot set state equals 0 after our if times pressed, okay? And in all honesty, yeah, this, if you're deleting something like this, maybe the thing that you're deleting will go away. But it shouldn't be too hard to just say this dot set state is equal to times pressed is equal to 0. So this dot set state times pressed is equal to 0 if we've hit 3 after it runs the action. Okay, so check out this button. It's going to be pretty slick now. We can say delete, are you sure? Once more to delete, and then boom. Action is fired and the button's gone back to normal. Okay, so this is really how we're doing this button. It's pretty cool, right? This thing is now going to run whatever that action is only on that third delete. It's sort of a nice little confirmation, and this button itself is really pretty easy. And one more thing you could do to this kind of button would be to, be able to pass in the amount of times you want it pressed. Like, let's take a look at that. For instance, we could say times, and this is going to be a number. It's not going to be required. And times can be set to have a default prop. So we can do static default props is going to be equal to, and then we can have times. It's initially equal to 3, as in if this thing has not been set, then it's always going to be 3, right? So let's come down here to our times pressed. And instead of checking to see if it's equal to 3, we can pull out times from this dot props and say, hey, if it's equal to times, then go ahead and show this. So let's go ahead and come back here. Let's check our app out. We can do 1, 2, 3, action. Okay. Now let's say we wanted to set this to 2. Let's come back to our app and we can go say times is equal to, and then we can just say 2. Now this thing is going to actually fire on the second. So 1, 2, action. Okay. Now this is really interesting because we've now added a layer of customization to this thing that, again, you don't need that prop. It's not a required prop. And again, if you have like 4 clicks before it runs, you're going to want to make sure you have 4 items in your dialog. Okay. So this is all pretty cool here, pretty cool. Now, I'm sure there's different approaches to this kind of thing, but this is the kind of approach I would take. It's nice and readable. You can sort of tell what's going on. We can leave comments here. The button itself is really, really slim. We could really make it nice and configurable. Now, let's talk about designing this thing. Because let's say we wanted to make this into something that looks a little bit nicer than this, right? Like something a little bit cooler. Let's go ahead and actually think about how we can do that with some styled components. Now, if you're happy with this, and this button is the button of your dreams, then by all means, take this, run with it, modify it, do whatever you want with it. The code's going to be on a GitHub gist anyway, so you can just do whatever you want with it. But if you want to make it look a little bit nicer, you can follow along here as we do that. So I'm going to go ahead and import styled from styled components. You can use CSS if you'd like. I'm using styled components just because I like it. That's in all honesty what's going on here. So if you don't like styled components, use any technique for styling you'd like. And we can just call this button with a capital B is equal to styled dot button. Okay. And again, we could have a prop that determines how this looks or what kind of button this uses. But again, this is really just for deleting. So don't worry about that. And what we want to go ahead and have on here is some background. And we'll have this be a specific color of red I like. And we're going to have this simply just be this hex value. And we can say E5 4B, not 3B, 4B, 4B, Okay, I'm typing not so well right now. Okay, check it out. We're going to have a border radius. Okay, typing, yeah, not so good, of 5 pixels. We're going to have a little bit of a box shadow, and this is just going to be maybe like a 1 pix, 1 pix, 5 pix, RGBA, 0, 0, 0. If you have values for this stuff, please by all means use your own. And let's actually swap out the button with this button right here. Let's see, just so we can confirm how this is going. We're going to have a border none on here to get rid of some of those default styles. Again, I'm not checking this on any other app here. This is just going to be for Chrome. So if it looks bad in Firefox or Safari, don't worry about it. And lastly, we'll just have a text transform uppercase, and we'll have a font weight of, let's do 900. Let's get this thing extra bold. Let's get it nice and bold and big here. There we go. Apparently my text transform was missing an S. Okay. There we go. Nice and big. Delete button. Okay. Now when I click it, are you sure? One more time to delete. There we go. Delete. Action. Okay. This is fun, right? This button looks a little bit nicer, but what are some cool little things we could do to it to make it like really stand out as being like a big deal? For instance, what happens if we wanted to bring in the press value or the times pressed value into this button, and we could simply just have this be let's have this be level is equal to times pressed. Now I'm writing this as level because I want to keep it kind of generic rather than times pressed. So let's go ahead and say this is the level of severity. Now, you could do this with CSS classes just by incrementally adding classes, or maybe you're adding a number to the end of the class. That might be an easy way to do it. With styled components, you could simply just have a arrow function in here to pull out the level prop out of here. And we could simply just say a couple things, right? I'm going to go ahead and just have a function in here like this. And we could say if level is equal to 1, then we can return, and then inside of here, let's return a string, which is just simply going to be transform scale, and it's going to be 1.2. Okay, just like this. So if the level is equal to 1, we're going to transform scale 1.2, and we can do if the level is equal to 3 or 2, let's go ahead and transform scale this up to like 1.6, make it even a little bit bigger, okay? And then we can come here. Let's try this thing in action, and let's see it scale as we click delete. Are you sure? One more time to delete. Awesome. Okay, that's really sweet. Let's go ahead and talk about easing, right? Because this is pretty sweet, but let's go ahead and make this thing even sweeter by building some sort of ease into this. Now, I have an easing function here I'm going to apply to this. So I'm going to add a transition, and this is going to be to transform properties, and it's going to be over 0.3 seconds, and the easing, it's going to be this Bezier curve. It's going to be 0.68, so it goes up a little bit, then negative 0.55, so it goes down a little bit, then it goes to 0.265, so it goes back up, and then 1.55, it goes over, okay? So let's go ahead and try this out here, and make sure this is saved before so we can see this nice little animation in action. Go, bow, wow, wow. Awesome. I think those sound effects really helped. It'd be nice to add some sound effects to this too. But as you can see here, this button is pretty dope. It's pretty cool. One more cool thing we could add to it is, again, changing the severity of this red color. Again, I'm going a little bit overboard with this thing, but why not? It's a lot of fun here. I'm having a great time. So let's go ahead and talk about this. We have our string, which is simply just returning a transform scale. If you wanted to get this a little bit nicer looking, we could do maybe like backticks like we had here, like this. And instead of just a transform scale, we could also add a background color change. So the background color could get to be a little bit more severe of a red. So if we could do something like B73C, and then let's do, I think, 3C. That's the color I'm looking for. There we go. And again, let's go ahead and do the same thing. I'm just converting these to backticks because I like to have them backticks anyway. So I don't know why I did single strings or single quotes anyways. And again, lastly, we can have this one be just a little bit more severe, and this can be something like 5B 1E, 1E. Okay, nice little dark maroon. Each time it's getting a little bit heftier, right? Let's go ahead and see this thing in action now. 1, 2, boom. Okay, and maybe you want to reverse that. I don't know. It's just for fun here. So check it out. We've now built this button, and it sort of satisfies the stuff that Wes is talking about here, where you have a set amount of times that you can click this thing, and then after a certain amount of times, it hits that action. That action will fire, and whether or not that's a delete or whatever, it doesn't necessarily matter. But what we have here is a reusable button that you can take. You can apply some of this stuff to your own buttons. Doesn't matter. It's pretty darn cool. Okay. So in the next few videos, I'm going to be doing a lot more experiments like these. If you like this kind of React experiment, let me know. I have several more ideas, especially for confirmed deletion buttons. We're going to have the classic modal example. We'll do the GitHub example where you have to type in a word to get it to delete. But either way, building this kind of interface stuff is fun. It's a combination of creative and technical challenges. But at the same time, I really think there's a lot of stuff to explore here. Now, if you want to take this code, transform it, do whatever with it, by all means, it's going to be available in the description of this video. You can take it, you can change it, you can modify it. You can tell me I'm dumb for doing something a dumb way, or you can make updates to it. It's all good. But this code as is will do exactly as we mentioned here. It's going to confirm a couple of times and then delete it. So if you like this video, let me know. This is a kind of new content. I got a new workspace here. I'm going to be doing more content like this. I know some people were wondering where the content on this channel has been. Don't worry, it's coming. I've already released 130 plus new tutorials this year on Level Up Pro. So if you want more content, head on over to Level Up Pro, get access to all of that. If you want to learn more about React, I have Level 2 React, which talks about animations and all sorts of really brilliant stuff like render props, portals. We build a really nice little modal in that course. And at Level 1 React, or React 16 for Everyone, it's sort of the new name for it, but React 16 for Everyone is the beginner's course. Check it out if you need to get your React skills up and you want to learn how to build cool stuff like this. So as always, this is Scott with Level Up Tutorials. Thank you so much for watching. And if you are not following Syntax, I did mention Wes Boss here. He and I host a podcast called Syntax. You can learn more at syntax.fm. Subscribe in your favorite podcast player. But we're at like 60-some episodes now, and it's been a huge success. So everyone who's been telling us how much they love Syntax, thank you so much for watching and listening and all that good stuff. We're going to continue. We have a big next year planned for Syntax. So a lot of cool stuff coming. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.